enter the otherworldly and dissipate into the unknown. You're tuning into 1013, the radio station from hell and back.
Welcome to Channel 1013, dear listeners. I am your storyteller, your music director, your sound against a silent night, and the only light shining in a dark world. This is the Darkerside, and above all else, I am your host, Herald Gravely. Welcome back to the broadcast, ladies and gents. It's September 13th, with Halloween encroaching on us for another season of treats, tricks, and scares. But even here and now, you won't find any solace, my friends, as we'll be delving deep into the recently released horror film adaptation, with director Florence once again at the kingly helm, based on Stephen King's first ever published work called The Long Walk. There's also the new Dying Light, the beast that must be discussed, along with a frightful and thrilling tale about one Italian serial killer who many people have never heard of. But over in Italy, he's known as the Monster of Modane, with music by the Coloradan act Temple of Asteria and their song Evil Spells. This surely be a night to remember, right here on 1013, the Darkerside. It may not be Friday the 13th, but boy, are we in for it tonight. Starting out with The Long Walk, a story centered on a brutal, state-sponsored walking contest in a totalitarian America where teenage boys are forced to walk non-stop until only one remains, with the penalty for slowing down being execution. In a near-future America under a military-style regime, one spectacle keeps the nation wrapped: The Long Walk. Each year, 100 teenage boys step onto the starting line with nothing but their names, a canteen, and a simple rule: don't slow down. Fall below the minimum pace and you rack up warnings. Earn too many and soldiers deliver your ticket. The road becomes a gauntlet of blistered feet, hunger, mind games, and the corrosive thrill of being watched. As hours turn to days, alliances fray, secrets spill, and the boys are stripped to their rawest selves until only one walker remains to claim any prize he desires. Notably, the movie's rules tweak the contest pace to a minimum of 3 miles per hour, amplifying the story's slow burn dread. King wrote The Long Walk in the late 1960s during his freshman year at the University of Maine, publishing it a decade later under his Richard Bachman pseudonym. It's dark, intimate, and relentlessly psychological, a road novel that becomes a pressure cooker, meditating on authoritarianism, spectacle, masculinity, friendship, and the allure of death. In the book, 100 boys walk Route 1 from the Maine-Canada border, drop below 4 miles per hour, and you're warned. 3 warnings, and you're shot. The protagonist, Ray Garrity, bonds and clashes with fellow walkers, especially the sardonic McFrys and the enigmatic Stebbins, while the unseen nation cheers. King has long hinted the tale's cruelty made it a tough adaptation. Merciless, as recent coverage put it. King's novella-length premise is deceptively simple, but it weaponizes repetition. Each footstep erodes bravado, reveals tenderness, and interrogates why we cheer for suffering. The walk becomes a mirror of a nation's appetite for spectacle and of adolescent boys testing where courage ends and surrender begins. The film's creative team seems intent on preserving that merciless intimacy while sharpening the dystopian edges for a 2025 audience, states Vanity Fair. With all of that said, how did the movie fare in my eyes? Well, without any expectations, it was better than we expected. Though, I'm a sucker for anything Stephen King, though the modern changes done with the film's story, setting and so on put it above many of the earlier adaptations of his. And it is truly a brutal and gruesome story. With the age of brown and grey dystopian films set behind us, this movie does a perfectly fine job at leaving the colour grating alone, with every passing setting speaking for itself without some annoying filter. The characters are all likeable for the most part, and you really get to know the cast through their extraneous journey. And with a large reward set at the goal line, I think that now is the time to release such a story. Between the Squid Game's hype and our own economic atmosphere, this film seemed appropriate. And not to delve too much into spoiler territory, but the ending of the film mirrors King's trademark sense of a twist without it being as silly as a Shyamalan film. At times, this adaptation acts more like a thriller than a horror, but if you look closely enough at the subtle imagery and persistent symbolism throughout, the story itself forms something horrific. Almost like a psychological horror, there are underlying terrors beneath the surface of the film that give it gravity and have it weigh down on its audience for sure. Is it my favorite Stephen King adaptation? No, but it's somewhere in my top 5 for sure. It was extremely reminiscent of Stand By Me, just with a darker twist. And after viewing The Monkey, which was released earlier this year, it's hard to beat the comedic gore and silly horror of that film. But The Long Walk definitely stands on its own, and I believe that it's a film worth checking out this year. If it had been released in October, it would have been the perfect pre-Halloween movie to see. But October in Hollywood is shaping up to be pretty cramped with films already. So perhaps it's best that it got released now rather than later. I can hear them. They're scratching at the windows again. I hear them banging at the front doors to the studio. Something needs to be done. Oh, sorry, dear listeners. I didn't know that we had gone live again. Never mind whatever you may have heard just now. Let's instead discuss the latest from the Dying Light franchise. Dying Light, the Beast, with protagonist Kyle Crane, picking up 13 years after his disappearance between the events of Dying Light and Dying Light 2 Stay Human. After being abducted and subjected to gruesome experiments by a sinister scientist known as the Baron, Crane escapes, but now carries zombie DNA that grants him monstrous abilities. Driven by trauma and vengeance, he must navigate the twisted dangers of Castor Woods, an eerie rural setting unlike the urban battlegrounds of prior entries. His inner beast offers power, but at the risk of losing himself. After his dramatic departure in Dying Light, the following: Crane is back, forced to confront his past after enduring years of horrifying experiments by a scientist known as the Baron. The Beast falls between Dying Light and Dying Light, Stay Human, serving as a narrative bridge that answers some lingering questions from previous endings and supplying context to the world's transformation. Instead of sprawling urban environments like Harran or Villador, you're navigating a lush, eerie rural valley inspired by the Swiss Alps, swamps, forests, industrial ruins, and abandoned tourist towns fuel both exploration and dread. Originally conceived as DLC for Dying Light 2 Stay Human, the tone turns significantly darker. Techland calls it the most horror-driven, survival-oriented installment yet, aiming to recapture the fear and intimacy of the first game. Crane's DNA is now fused with the undead, allowing him to unleash a powerful beast mode. This transforms combat, unleash raw, primal moves like ripping limbs apart, hurling objects, and tapping into a dedicated skill tree. But it's not limitless. You must choose when to let the beast out. The parkour system adapts to natural, less vertical terrain, sometimes trading fluid agility for atmospheric stealth, yet still rewarding creative paths into buildings or over obstacles. Alongside traditional melee and firearms, expect new weapons like a grenade launcher and a flamethrower, adding flamboyant, visceral flair to combat. The game keeps the iconic day-night cycle, but now framed within dense forests that shroud horrors in darkness. Flashlights, shadows, and unpredictable enemies ramp up isolation and dread. A rural, forested valley with biomes like swamps, ruins, and abandoned cabins. Unlike the skyscraper-filled cities of prior games, this environment fosters tension through shadows, unseen threats, and atmospheric horror. Dying Light. The Beast blends the best of the franchise, a refined parkour-driven action foundation with grittier horror, supernatural powers, and a narrative of revenge and identity. Its tighter scope and grounded tone aim to re-engage returning fans and immerse new players with its atmospheric promise. Having played the first Dying Light, but never really becoming immersed in the gameplay, I'm probably not the greatest source for a review. The game, just like its predecessors, plays like an EA or Ubisoft game. There's plenty of zombies to fight off, cool parkour obstacles for escape, and otherwise, things to collect and a story to unravel. And honestly, its dark turn on the atmosphere is probably my favorite change in the series. However, I can't say that this game is for me personally. After playing, I can see it being fun for a majority who want a simple, action-packed adventure packed into an eerie and otherwise unsettling atmosphere. But I'm a man who desires just a little bit more from his video games, and the repetition just didn't do it for me. Again, you shouldn't be looking to me for a first-person action horror title such as this. At the end of the day, I'm more of a Silent Hill, Rule of Rose, Haunting Grounds type of player, rather than a Resident Evil, Dead Space, BioShock type. Although, I have played numerous games set in those franchises and have enjoyed my time with them thoroughly. I suppose what I'm trying to say without being too harsh on this new title in the Dying Light series is that it just isn't for me. And if it's meant for you, then that's perfectly fine. But it won't be for everyone. And if you're someone who enjoyed playing the original Dying Light games, then I believe that you'll enjoy this journey through a zombie apocalyptic hell as well. It's that time again, when 1013, the Darkerside, brings on another great local act into its broadcast. Everyone, this is Temple of Esteria and their hard-hitting track Evil Spells. We hope that you enjoy. we come to that time on the broadcast where we like to tell you all a little story. A haunting, horrific, and horrendous story. One you may not know a lot about, and one that you will certainly regret listening to. So, viewer discretion is advised. The Monster of Modane, also known as the Monster of Florence. From 1968 until 1985, a shadow stalked the olive groves and lovers' lanes around Florence. He hunted in the warm nights of Tuscany, where young couples drove into the countryside seeking privacy. There, beneath the cypress trees and moonlit fields, desire turned into terror. The killings were ritualistic in their repetition. Lovers in cars would be ambushed. Shots rang out, cold, methodical. The gun was always the same. A Beretta .22 caliber pistol, its distinctive markings tying the crimes together across nearly 2 decades. Yet the violence did not end with the shooting. The women, in particular, were subjected to grisly mutilations, acts so cruel they suggested something beyond mere murder, something symbolic, almost ritual, the first double murder. At the time, it seemed a tragic crime of passion, quickly solved. But in hindsight, investigators would return to it with fresh horror, seeing the same fingerprints of evil. Couples continued to die in their cars. By now, whispers spread. Lovers' lanes emptied. Young people grew cautious. But still the killings came, each echoing the last. The murders reached a fever pitch. Each summer, when the air grew heavy and the countryside seemed to hold its breath, Florence waited for another strike. Police patrols combed the hills. Lovers lived in dread. And always, when it seemed safe again, another couple was found. The police pursued countless leads, and every arrest collapsed under the weight of uncertainty. Evidence slipped through their hands like mist. The investigation became a labyrinth. Some detectives believed they hunted not one killer but a group, perhaps a cult performing dark rites. Others insisted it was a single man, obsessive, cunning, and careful. Over time, the investigation itself seemed cursed. Careers were ruined. Suspects died in prison. Innocent men were branded monsters, and the true killer, if indeed there was only one, remained in the shadows. By 1985, the killing stopped. The countryside breathed again, yet no one was ever convicted beyond doubt. Trials were held, sentences passed, but the certainty never came. Florence was left with a ghost, a faceless figure who had haunted their hills for 17 years and then vanished. Today, the Monster of Florence is more than a criminal case. He is myth, woven into Italy's tapestry of horror and mystery. Books and films have immortalized him. Journalists still chase the puzzle. Locals still warn of his name. Was he a lone predator who grew old and died in silence? Or was he part of a conspiracy so deep that justice was never possible? The files remain open, the shadows thick. The Monster of Florence is one of Europe's darkest legends, an intersection of true crime and Gothic folklore. His murders still chill because they are unresolved. Florence, a city of beauty and art, carries beneath its Renaissance splendor the scar of a predator who turned the Tuscan night into a hunting ground. And speaking of hunting grounds, I believe that the forests that lay outside of our studio in Greywater may just be awakening to the sounds of something terrible. Before it's too late, I must bid you all farewell. I am your host, Herald Gravely, and this has been 1013, The Darker Side. Thanks again for tuning in. Keep those doors locked and your lights on, else something sinister breaches your home. Until next time, so long.